An old man sits on a weathered bench overlooking the Mediterranean, watching his grandson cut grass that will grow back before the season ends, and he feels no regret. He built a stone retaining wall on that hillside 40 summers ago, and it still holds. He knows something most people never learn. He never confused being busy with making progress. Every year of his life had a clear target. Most people reach that age with a mountain of hours behind them and nothing solid to show for it. He reached it with a wall, a family business, children who don't crumble when life gets difficult, and a stillness inside that most men spend their entire lives chasing. That stillness isn't luck. It's what happens when a person stops letting time drain through cracks they've stopped noticing. You are losing time right now. Not in some abstract philosophical sense, but in a measurable, countable way. Somewhere in your daily routine, there's a hole in the floor, and hours are falling through it. You've become so accustomed to the sound of them dropping that you don't even hear it anymore. The Stoics built their entire system around sealing that hole, not through positive thinking, not through productivity tricks, but through honest, unflinching truth telling about where time actually goes. What follows are 7 principles drawn from 7 different thinkers who each examined the same problem and reached the same conclusion. The person who squanders time isn't unlucky, he's untrained. Truth 1, tomorrow has never belonged to you. Seneca managed the finances of the Roman Empire and still found himself astonished at how his fellow citizens treated their most precious resource. He watched senators protect their villas with armed guards and their fortunes with lawyers, yet hand out their days for free to anyone who asked. The strange thing wasn't that they wasted time, it was that they didn't even realize they were doing it because time doesn't announce its departure the way money does. Seneca wrote that people are careful with their possessions, but when it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing where frugality is most justified. A man will haggle for 10 minutes over the cost of bread and then burn 3 hours he'll never recover on a screen that gives him nothing. This isn't a flaw unique to ancient Romans, it's the factory setting of the human mind. Losing money is visible, a number drops and something in your gut reacts. Losing time is invisible until it isn't, until you're 46 and realize the skill you meant to learn at 26 never got learned. The book never got written, the body never got built, and there's no receipt showing where the hours went. This is why tomorrow is the most dangerous word in your vocabulary, not because tomorrow won't come, but because the promise of it lets you off the hook today. You tell yourself you'll start that project next month, call your parents next week, fix your health after this deadline passes. Each delay costs nothing in the moment, which is exactly the trap. The cost is deferred until it compounds into a life spent entirely in the waiting room. Marcus Aurelius, governing from a military tent in the middle of plague and warfare, wrote to himself that a person should act as if they might depart from life at any moment. He didn't write that to frighten himself. He wrote it because the Emperor of Rome still only had access to one currency that truly mattered, and it wasn't gold. There's a version of this truth that goes deeper. It isn't just that you might die tomorrow. It's that even if you live another 50 years, most of those years will be consumed by things that were never truly yours. Sleep takes a third, obligations and other people's emergencies take another chunk, illness and the gradual erosion of energy take more. By the time you subtract everything that isn't truly discretionary, the actual usable years are a fraction of what you assume. Truth 2, being occupied is not the same as building. Epictetus was born into slavery. He understood that a person can be in chains and still be free, and a person can be free and still be enslaved to their own noise. He spent his life teaching Roman aristocrats, and he watched most of them fill their days with activity that led nowhere. Most people aren't afraid of failure directly. They're afraid of the moment just before failure, the vulnerable stretch where you commit to something and it might not work. So instead of committing, they generate motion. Motion feels like courage because it's tiring and it fills the hours. But motion without a target is just fear wearing a business suit. A person spends 4 hours researching a business they want to start, watching videos about other people who already built theirs. They tell themselves this is preparation. It's avoidance dressed as diligence. A writer rewrites the same paragraph 9 times, calling it perfectionism. But an unfinished draft can't be rejected, and a finished one can. The rewriting is a hiding place with good lighting. Epictetus drew a hard line between what is within your control and what isn't. Wasted time almost always happens worrying about outcomes you can't control instead of executing the actions you can. Your calendar can be completely full, and your life can still be completely empty because being occupied and being directed are not the same discipline. One exhausts you. The other builds something that outlives the exhaustion. Before starting any task, ask what the task is actually for. Research that never leads to a decision isn't preparation, it's a loop with no exit. Truth 3. Comfort borrows from tomorrow at brutal interest. Cleanthes worked nights hauling water so he could study philosophy during the day. He did this for years while wealthier students mocked him. He understood something the comfortable men around him didn't. Every hour you spend avoiding difficulty today gets billed back to you later with interest in a currency far more expensive than the discomfort you dodged. The task you're avoiding doesn't disappear because you avoid it. It waits, and while it waits, it grows. The difficult conversation you postpone for 6 months isn't the same conversation 6 months later. It's heavier because resentment has compounded on both sides. Delay isn't neutral, it's not a pause button, it's a loan. Compare two people doing the same unpleasant task. One does it the first week when it's a 15-minute conversation. The other avoids it for 3 years until it's a crisis requiring lawyers or bankruptcy. Same task, wildly different cost. The only variable was how long the loan of avoidance was allowed to accrue interest. Cleanthes chose the water-hauling nights because he understood that discomfort accepted early is cheap, and comfort purchased today is paid for later at a markup you can't negotiate. Look at your own life and find the loan you're currently taking out, the unopened bill, the unresolved conflict. Every day you don't touch it. The interest ticks up quietly. A body neglected for a year needs a year of correction. A body neglected for a decade often needs medical intervention. A conversation avoided for a week is awkward. The same conversation avoided for 3 years has calcified into a grudge. Truth 4. Your attention is the only thing you truly own. Marcus Aurelius ruled the largest empire on earth and still understood that none of it belonged to him in any lasting sense. Not the throne, not the armies, not even his own body. The only thing he could claim as truly his was where he pointed his attention in any given moment. He wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Most people live as though their attention belongs to whoever asks for it loudest, the notification, the argument. The algorithm engineered by people paid to extract hours of your life. Every ping you answer without deciding to is a small transfer of ownership. You didn't choose to give that attention away. It was taken because you left the door unlocked. This is the least visible form of wasted time and the most expensive. You can lose an afternoon to a task you chose badly and still have made a decision. You lose something worse when you never decided at all. When the day simply happened to you, pulled in a dozen directions by forces that have no stake in your life. Marcus guarded his attention the way a general guards a border, because he knew that a person who cannot control what they think about cannot control what they do. At the end of today, will you be able to say where your attention went and why? Or will you only be able to say what happened to you? One of those is ownership. The other is trespassing on your own life. Truth 5. Discipline that needs an audience isn't discipline. Musonius Rufus taught that philosophy without daily practice was worthless decoration. He pushed his students toward an uncomfortable question. Does your discipline exist when no one is watching? Most wasted time hides where no one is looking. The workout you skip when your trainer isn't watching. The extra hour of sleep instead of the deep work you promised yourself. Public discipline is easy because it's performance. Private discipline, the version that happens in an empty room at 6 in the morning with nobody to post it to, is the only version that compounds into a life. Ask yourself honestly, if no one could ever find out what you did today, would you have done the same things? If the answer is no, you've found the gap between the life you're performing and the life you're actually building. Truth 6. The fear of judgment costs more than judgment itself. Zeno of Citium lost his fortune in a shipwreck, walked away with nothing, and founded an entire school of philosophy. He didn't waste years mourning the ship. He understood that the opinions of strangers dissolve almost instantly, while the fear of those opinions can consume years of a life. Consider how much time gets spent rehearsing conversations that never happen, defending decisions no one has attacked, editing a version of yourself for an audience that is barely thinking about you at all. This isn't a minor leak. For many people, it's the single largest drain on their potential. The judgment you're afraid of rarely arrives, and when it does, it rarely lasts. People forget your mistakes faster than you do because they're consumed with the same fear about their own. Truth 7. A life can be complete without being long. Chrysippus became the most prolific writer among the Stoics. Hundreds of scrolls, entire systems of logic, and yet even he taught that the length of a life was never the measure that mattered. What mattered was whether the life had been completed on its own terms. A play isn't judged by how many acts it runs. It's judged by whether the final scene resolves what the earlier scenes set in motion. A short play, well constructed, is complete. A long play that meanders and never resolves is not. Duration was never the Stoic obsession. Completion was. This reframes everything. You are not racing a clock. You're building something that needs to be able to stand as complete at any point it might end. The man from the opening didn't build his wall because he expected to live to 94. He built it because building was the only response that didn't waste the day he was standing in. Don't wait for a future version of your circumstances to become the person you're capable of being today. A single well-built day, structured with intention and finished without leaking its hours into distraction, is already a whole unit of a life well spent. 7 thinkers, 7 centuries apart, separated by empires, exile, slavery, shipwrecks and thrones, and everyone arrived at the same conclusion. Time isn't wasted through disaster, it's wasted through 1,000 small permissions granted to comfort, fear, distraction and delay. The old man on the bench isn't remarkable because he lived to 94. He's remarkable because every decade of his life could stand on its own as complete. That's the compounding result of 1,000 ordinary days, each one spent instead of leaked, you have today. That's the whole inheritance. Seneca would tell you to stop being frugal with money and reckless with hours. Epictetus would tell you to stop mistaking motion for direction. Cleanthes would tell you the bill for today's comfort comes due with interest. Marcus would tell you to guard your attention like an empire. Musonius would tell you to build a discipline no one has to witness. Zeno would tell you the judgment you fear is smaller than the years you'd spend avoiding it. And Chrysippus would tell you that none of this needs decades to matter. It needs a single day finished well. Build the wall, not someday, today. If this message resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to MindShift Philosophy for more content on Stoicism, self-mastery and personal growth. Thank you for watching.